everybody. I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about all the energies that are out there with the full moon and the partial eclipse. And I wanted to sort of explain a little bit about all this talk about letting go. It seems like when you start to listen to intuitives online, it feels like everybody's always talking about this thing about letting go and anchoring up, right? That's what everybody's talking about. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the heck that all means. The truth is that when you step into the world of physical manifestation, when you're really trying to enable your body to step into a place of personal growth. Hi to everybody who's joining. Thank you so much, by the way. I really appreciate it. So when you step into this area of personal growth, and you're trying to understand your past, what you're actually trying to do is you're actually going through your chakra systems, whether you or you don't, and you're actually going from the bottom to the top. You're going from your root chakra, where things have been festered and stored from when you were younger, to your sacral chakra, really understanding or really feeling like that situation that happened that seems to pop up in your life over and over again, like there it is again, there's that situation again. And the solar plexus, where you really just are feeling the pangs of the whole situation that seems to be reappearing in your life. So when I wrote Trust Your Intuition, the book, I really started to talk about reruns. And in my life and in yours, there are a lot of times where we experience reruns because we really haven't learned the lesson yet, to be very honest with you. We're scratching at the surface of what the problem is. We're trying to understand it. But sometimes it takes a lot to really understand what the depth of the problem is. And I think, honestly, when I started all of this in personal growth, and that was probably about 12 years ago, I kept on thinking about it like that. I kept on thinking about pain and how do I get past the pain. But what I really didn't understand was that trauma, that pain that I was so focused on was really there to teach me a lesson, was really there to teach me my own personal strength, my own personal growth. And the truth is that when trauma happens to people when they're really young, it sort of expedites your ability to actually have empathy and feel situations on a more intense way. So when my mother died when I was 3, it was a pretty traumatic situation. But at 3, you're not really understanding. I look at it now and I can see, wasn't really understanding what was happening. Wasn't really getting what was going on. All I knew is that the survival part of it all and the loss part of it all was real. But on some level, spiritually, I understood what death meant. And I sort of just knew that she was in a different plane, that she was in a different space. And it's interesting, and I talk about it in the book, right before she died, she actually came into my room and kissed me goodbye. And I sort of had this sense, not crying, but that she was leaving. And I wasn't crying or anything. I was very matter of fact about it. But then when my dad asked me to come into their bedroom and actually physically kiss her body goodbye, I sort of knew she wasn't there anymore. But I went through the motions at 3 years old because I thought that's what I needed to do for my dad. I didn't think that he'd really understand me telling him that I saw her in my crib. And I also, from this point of view now, at 64, I can honestly say, at 3, I don't think I had the vocabulary to really explain everything that I was sensing, everything that I was feeling, everything I was experiencing. I didn't really understand it myself. And it was just all things that were sort of unfolding for me. And I was understanding what was just being presented. But what's interesting to me is that for years afterwards, I kept on being told how sad it was, how awful it was that she died. I would hear it from my parents' friends. I would hear it from my friends' parents over and over again. This message coming to me about how sad it was, how devastating it was. But I really didn't know it any other way. My father remarried another woman. She was now standing in as my mother. That's what I knew. I had my sister. That's what I knew. I just knew what was going on for me in the now. And so that information that they were telling me, how sad it was, how devastating it was sort of just all taken into my body and stored. And that's the reason why I started talking about the chakras, because so where does that energy go, right? It goes into your sacral, it goes into your solar plexus. And so when we go into this area of personal growth, we actually scratch at those surfaces and release those ideas that the world is now giving to us, and that's sad, that it's something that's devastating. And I had an understanding that her time was not supposed to be with me and getting old, that she had lived her time, that I was really supposed to only have her for a very brief amount of time. And even though I spent many years honestly being mad at my sister for not sharing information about her, about knowing who she was, this is a picture of me and her when I was 2 years old. And that's 1962. And I really spent a lot of time looking at pictures, looking for signs of her affection to me, really wanting to try and make that physical connection that I had with her like a real thing. But the thing is that I always felt her in my body, always sensed her in my soul, always sensed her energy all around me. But I didn't trust it. I didn't trust that connection. I didn't trust those impressions that I was getting. And so what happened is all that energy sort of got harbored within my body. And it wasn't until much later on, when I would say in my 50s, that I really started to really examine what I was holding on to, what I was really not looking at. And the thing that I was really just not looking at was that her coming into my life and her being my mother provided me with everything I needed, that the universe provided me with everything that I needed. And the next lessons were going to come to me in a new way. And I had to let go of this idea that it was sad, that it was painful, that it was awful, and instead just accept the fact that it was. And that was a really hard thing for me to accept. As a matter of fact, the first time I heard about it, I was talking to my mentor, who I used to sort of step into my own intuitiveness. And the first time she said to me, it was how it was supposed to be. She wasn't supposed to be in your life for very long. I actually got up and left her room. And I stood in the bathroom pacing back and forth, trying to decide if I wanted to continue. Because how could this be true? How could it be that the universe planned for this to be? But the truth was I didn't know. And I wanted to find out. So that power that was within me, my own internal sense of understanding that I was coming to a place in time that I actually had to accept who I was and why I was here, my destiny, made me go back into the room. And I learned that that was her time period. That was her contract to be here for that brief amount of time. I don't think that there's always a lot of logic that's applied to when you really have a sense of grief. Grief and logic just don't work together. And I really never gave myself that opportunity to actually feel grief. Because to be very honest with you, it was always something that I just grew up knowing. So it really wasn't until I was almost 34 and my daughter was turning 3 that I was looking at her and I realized that if I died today at age 34, that she would have the same memories of me that I had of my mother. that they really would be the essence of who I was. That essence, giving that to her to survive and live with. But lucky for me, I got to live and continue to live now, and got to see my daughter grow up to be an adult, and got to experience that relationship with her, and still continue to have that relationship with her. But it wasn't meant to be for me and my mother. And standing that and accepting that at age 34 really had me spinning into my own set of grief. And it was very strange to be grieving for somebody 30 years after they died, and really by myself. I shared it with my husband, who understood, but it really wasn't something that was like a ceremony that other people were part of. It was just something that I was feeling. And so I wanted to share this with you, because lots of times when people think about personal growth, they're not thinking about all the things that you're uncovering, all the things that you are unfolding, so to speak. And when you allow yourself that opportunity to heal from that experience, you are, in a sense, making space within your own heart, compassion within your own heart, to grow, to see things from a different perspective, to understand things from a different perspective. And that's really what personal growth is about. It's about looking at something that you used to look at one way, and then growing and now seeing it from a different point of view. And I think that uniformly, when you are in the area of personal growth, and all of us are, even if you're not a dedicated person in the area of personal growth, it's a scary process to be in, because we think logically, well, and then people have talked about, oh, it's like an onion. You cut the onion and you have to go through the layers of the onion. But the thing about it is, it's an endless onion. And where the real meat and potatoes are is in the connective tissue in the onion. That connective tissue that sits within us, that sits in our tissues. And so I'm a Reiki master. And so when I work with people and I feel that energy sort of sitting there within you, I intuitively will ask them, what do they think about that situation? What color comes to your mind when you think about that situation? So let's try something right now. All of you that are watching, I want you to think about something that's been bothering you, that's been on your mind. And maybe it's something that you've been doing a rerun for years, right? And I want you to see if you could put that into your left hand, that situation, that problem. And I want you to look at it in that hand. And I want you to see if you can identify what color it is. So if you're identifying that problem, that situation in your hand as red, well, then it's attached to your root chakra. If you're identifying it as orange, well, it's in your sacral. If you're identifying that color as yellow, it's your solar plexus. And if it's green, it's in your heart. If it's blue, it's in your throat, which is the area of communication. And communication isn't just about speaking. It's also about writing. It's also about creating art. Anything in that process is all a form of communication. And if it's purple, it's in your third eye. And if it's pink, it's in your crown. And then if it's above that, it's white. And that's above the crown chakra. And just see where that situation is landing. And when you understand that, you have a sense of where that pain is sort of harboring within you, and what it is that you need to become more available to. Those are the kind of sessions that I do with people, and really trying allow them to heal that pain and allow that pain to shift perspective so it becomes something that's healing as opposed to something that's like a thorn in your side. We find that lots of times we look at things and we feel as though we want to avoid them because it's a trigger. That's what people like to call it. Here's that word again. But I really like to call it a glimmer because it's shedding light on something that you need to look at more closely, something that you need to pay attention to and see how the universe is actually bringing that to your attention so that you can heal and that you can grow. And I want to offer you some affirmations when you figure out where your problem is sitting. If it's your root chakra, I want you to practice using this affirmation. I'm open to new ideas, that you're not closed off. If it's in your sacral, orange, then you have to say that you have compassion towards yourself and that you respect and everything that you know. And it's about allowing yourself to regard yourself from the highest esteem and knowing that you have the compassion for yourself the same way you give to others. If it's in the solar plexus, it's about understanding your value as just being yourself. And if it's in your heart chakra, it's about understanding that you are interconnected with everything that you touch and that you have an integral part in all the facets of your life. And if it's in your throat, it's about understanding and listening to your gut, to your intuition, and letting it speak through you, using your intuition to speak through you in whatever creative process that you find interesting to you. If it's in your third eye, it's about opening to the wisdom of your guides, allowing them to guide you and letting go and surrendering the control. And if it's in your crown, it's about understanding that there's a deeper truth that you still get to master, that you still get to understand, and that you still get to connect to. So I really hope that these affirmations and understanding the colors of your pain really allow you to start to see how those triggers, those situations that are in your life really are here to allow you all the juice, all the personal power that you have within you to shift that perspective and allow it to be something that you can heal from instead of something that you shy away from and actually have a fear towards. That wasn't the intention. The intention for that situation to happen in many cases is because it is meant for you to grow. And like I said before, once you enter the realm of personal growth, it really is a never-ending space. It's a space where you are forever shifting your perspective about things and forever looking at things with a new perspective, and then once again making space for yet a new way of thinking. I think I'm sharing this all for you because for me, I'm always about shifting perspective, never staying right where I am. I find that many times you can feel like down and out or feeling like you just don't want to do anything. I have days like that myself. But instead of pushing against that momentum of really not wanting to move, of really not wanting to do anything, sometimes the thing to do is to go with that momentum. The universe is bringing that energy to you because it's asking you to stay put and focus your energies on healing yourself and valuing who you are. So if you gift yourself that time to go within yourself and heal, to go within yourself and honor who you are and your value, and to have compassion for you, you might find that you shift out of that energy rather quickly. And that instead of sitting in it for such a long period of time, you're shifting out of that energy and into a new way of thinking and a new perspective. Everything I always say with emotions is like waves, ocean waves. They come in and then they move. There's flow within them. And if you allow them to flow within you, you'll experience what those emotions are sort of speaking to you about, and then you allow them to dissipate. But when you hold on to the control and tell yourself how you shouldn't be feeling something and are down on yourself because you are feeling blue or because you're not being as constructive as you should think you should be, you're actually sitting more in that stuck space and you're not allowing that energy to flow in this natural rhythm that it does. And I understand not everybody has the opportunity to let that flow always happen around them. If you have little children, or if you have an elderly parent you're taking care of, or you have a job that you're in, you have to be productive for that job. But when it comes to you and how you feel about your own self, give yourself that opportunity for a little bit more love and compassion on a day where things are not so bright and spunky. And know that that energy is here for you because it's trying to teach you something. So instead of pushing back against that energy with resistance, sort of look at that energy and ask yourself, what is it trying to show me? So I hope that this video showed you some new things. I'd love to know what you're thinking in the comments and know how you shifted. And if you want to, I'd love to know what colors you got for your pain. And if that little trick that I showed you allowed you and afforded you any kind of perspective shift. Thank you so much for joining me today and coming on here and spending your time with me, your precious time. I really appreciate all of you. And I loved speaking to all of you. Unfortunately, I'm not so great at reading the names. They come in way too fast for me. But I wanted to offer a card up for everybody that's in this container today from my own personal card deck. This is the outside of the card deck. And I wanted to offer you a card to go with for today. All of the cards are associated with my book. And they all have a number. So I'm actually shuffling the cards right now. And this is an oracle deck, not a tarot deck. And I'm going to pull a card for this group right now. Let me write to this card. So this is the card. So what's so interesting about this card is actually this is a picture of my cat from many years ago. This is my first baby. His name was Desi. That's him. And I gave him this card because I really feel like cats represent so much of standing love for yourself. Cats really know how to claim that for themselves and teaching us how to have compassion. And I think that that's just the perfect card, actually, because it was just talking about having more compassion for you. And if you're in this space of actually letting go, it's about allowing that compassion that you give to yourself to be something that you can see as a tool for you to use to love yourself just a little bit more. And if you're in this space of expansion, it's about appreciating all the gifts that you possess right now, all the places that you actually would like to shift into, and knowing that you have the strength and the power within you to actually get to those spaces. And to not use the word hope when you're moving forward. Hope has a energy that contains the space of maybe it won't happen. Instead, actually see it in the future. See yourself in the future of experiencing it. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Hope you got something from that card and some of the tips that I gave to you to add to your own personal toolbox. And have a great day, and know that the partial eclipse energy is really all about the phoenix, burning up what's no longer present for us and reigniting ourselves with passion and with hope for who we are and seeing ourselves as valuable, compassionate beings. Thanks so much for tuning in. And now I'm going to try and turn this off. Let's see if I can do it.